Hi everybody, this is Miss Moss, and I wanted to give y'all a little instructional video for how we're doing rounding within the classroom so that y'all can kind of help with the homework and with practice at home. So we're going to start with rounding to the tens place. Say I have the number 46. When I round to the tens place, I underline to the tens place and I circle what's behind it. This tells us the number behind it is in charge of either changing the 4 or keeping the 4 where it goes. I want to put it on a number line. The 4 is my first number on my number line, my first boundary number. The 4 is not just worth 4, I tell them. You have to say what it's worth. It's worth 40. And if they need a little help or guidance, you can tell them the circle is kind of like a 0 around the 6 to make it into the 40. And then the next part is I'm rounding by tens, so I'm going to increase my number line by 10, multiples of 10. So the 40 becomes 40 plus 10, which they should be able to do mentally, but if they can't, they can write it out to the side, and they should get to 50. So these are my two boundary numbers. 46 goes in between 40 and 50 on a number line. So the next part is to set up a midpoint. This midpoint tells us whether we're going to go up with our number or down with our number. What I tell them for midpoint is when we round to the tens, our midpoint is going to end in a 5. When we round to the hundreds, our midpoint is going to end in a 50. When we round to the thousands, our midpoint's going to end in a 500, and that pattern continues on and on and on. So since we're rounding to the tens place, our midpoint is going to end in a 5, so that tells us that our number is going to be 45 for our midpoint. The next step is to take the 46 and decide whether it is less than 45 or greater than 45. And they should know that the 46 is a little bit greater than 45, so we put it on our number line right here. And then we can decide whether it's closer to the 50 or closer to the 40, and we kind of look at the distance and we look to see if it's on the right side of the 45 or the left side. So it's closer to the 50, so that means we round to the 50. Now that's rounding to the tens place. Rounding to the tens place with a 3-digit number is similar, but it looks just a little bit different. So we have 146, and again, we're going to underline all the way to the tens place. This kind of tells us what we're going to write on the beginning of our number line. And then we're going to circle the number behind it, and that's the boss of our 14. It's going to tell us to go up or to stay at 14, or 140. So then we create our number line. We bring that 14 down, but it's not just worth 14, it's worth 140. And again, you can tell them that this is like an imaginary 0 around the number. So then we want to go 10 more. 140 plus 10, which they should be able to do mentally, but if not, they can write it out, gives us our 150. And again, we're rounding to the tens place. So the 10 means we have a 5. For rounding to the 100 again is to the 50, and the 1,000 is to the 500, and there's our pattern continuing on. And so we just remind them that the 10 is going to end in a 5. So between the 140 and 150 is 145. Then we need to place our number 146 on our number line. It is just a little bit more than 145, so we put our number right there. And then we compare the distance between the 146 to the 150 and then the 140, and it is much closer to 150, so it rounds to 150. Another type of rounding is rounding to the hundreds place. And they'll confuse the tens and the hundreds place rounding once they start to do both of those on their homework. So for the hundreds place, what we tell them, say I have the number 146 again, is we're going to underline only to the hundreds place, and we're going to circle directly behind it, and that's going to be our boss number again. So the 4 is going to tell our 1 what to do. This time on the number line, I only underlined the hundreds place. So that tells me I'm only going to write the hundreds place. What's behind it is going to be a 0, and you can also tell them to put a little mini 0 on the number behind the circled number to know that there's another 0 there, that 1 is not just worth 1, it's worth 100. So then we have 100, and we're rounding to the hundreds place, so we need to go 100 more. So 100 plus 100 is 200, so that is our other boundary number. Now we need to go directly in between the 100 and 200 and find our midpoint number. According to our pattern, 10 ends in a 5, 100 would end in a 50, and 1,000 would end in a 500. we are rounding to the hundreds place, so our number is going to end in a 50. So directly between 100 and 200 is 150. Now I look at my number, 146. The 46, is it less than or greater than the 50? It's a little bit less than the 50, so I place it on my number line to the left, 146. And then I look at my distance between 146 and 100, and the 146 and 200, and it's much closer to 100, so I round down to the 100. So these are some of the ways that we've started to teach the rounding for right now. If you have any questions, please contact your teacher and we can explain it a little bit further. Thank you.